Today we're at Airfield, my home strip in southern Queensland near the Gold Coast. Beautiful airstrip. So a quick look at the airfield for starters. There's our runway 1836. It's a grass strip. It's roughly 650 metres long. It's a great little strip. And then we've got 1028 over further, which is a dirt strip with bitumen ends on it. They've done a lot of work to that airstrip, made it wider, put grass along the right hand side, or depending on what direction you're heading. And it's made a hell of a lot better strip. Look, the last couple of videos we've done, we've been asked questions, you know, what sort of plane it is, what have you done to the plane, all those sorts of things. Most of them are positive. I do apologise for the sound, maybe the music being a little bit loud on the last couple. On the last video I actually toned it down a little bit, so hopefully that's helped. This one I'll definitely tone down the music. But I wanted to just show you over this aeroplane. Okay, a few things for this aeroplane. First of all, first thing that comes to mind is the prop. Now the original prop that was on this was a 60-inch and 48-degree prop. It was a wooden prop. Used to take off like an absolute rocket, but yeah, I was told when I bought this particular prop, I was told that I've got the wrong prop on it, and the prop that was on it would have been great for towing gliders and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it did take off like a rocket. You know, the top speed of it was not all that great. I used to pull 100 knots, but you know, that was up around 2900 revs, so which is a bit hard for these engines. These are vents in the side. Now that was an idea I had to get some more ventilation or airflow sort of past the barrels to make it run a bit cooler. But I could be honest, that was one of those things that I didn't do that I did that was not quite so great, and it ended up having an adverse effect, and I've got my theories about that too. Wheels, right, so I originally had a lot smaller wheels. The wheels I originally had were basically to the top of the rim in height, so I'm almost double the height of the wheels. So once you put bigger wheels on, obviously it's harder to pull up. So you know, that was sort of an adverse thing that I did to it in some respects. The good side of these wheels was that it's much better to land. It's much softer. I can land on pretty much anywhere. I've landed some really rough strips. My own old hometown, as in a previous video, for instance, without these wheels this plane would absolutely shake into pieces. So the brakes I've put on it are the Jabiru's latest and greatest, and they work really well. In saying that, if you had the original Jabiru master cylinders, and I'll get to that a little bit later, if I had the original master cylinders on it, you'd never pull it up in 100 years. The wings, okay, we've put VGs on here. Now once again, you know, there's a lot of people that have said, oh, VGs don't work, whatever, but I'm telling you, these VGs work great, and if anything, I'd probably put the VGs back just a tiny little bit further. They are forward a little bit too much, I think, but you know, I pretty much went on the recipe. They are actually supplied by a guy out at Kilcoy up in Queensland here, and they are a great product. There's absolutely no doubt about that. I've put a few stickers and things on the plane as well, just to pimp it up a little bit. I'll show you a photo of the original plane when I first got it, and it was really looked nothing quite like this. Moving around the plane, this plane has got a bigger vertical stabilizer on it, and that seems to work a lot better. It'd be pretty scary to land without, you know, I should say with the original one on it. So this one's a bit bigger and makes it a bit better to land. The tail wheel, that's my little invention. Okay, so this is a Will Hicks fabrication job, and being an old boiler maker, I thought I could come up with something. But see, underneath here there's a little pin right here that's spring loaded, and that pops out when you turn it, you know, to a certain angle. So pretty much full pedal, left or right, that pin will pop out and then it freewheels, and it works absolutely great. I originally did have a bigger wheel on the back. That was not so good, to be honest. Great on the sand, but how often do I land on the sand? Not very often. So yeah, great on the sand, but when it come to bitumen, it tend to shimmy a little bit, which was not too good. On the wings here, I've actually changed the flaps to electric flaps. Now, I had the electric flap kit for a good probably 12 months before I decided to do anything with it. And the handle that it was originally had just up on your left hand side, it was 2-stage and I kind of wanted 3. So that was something that prompted me to set it up as electric flap, and you know, it's just so much better. Plus the fact you know, when I learnt to fly, I flew in a sling, and I virtually put exactly the same setup on the dash that a sling has. So this is the electric flap setup, and there's a little controller that's in behind the actuator, which goes to the lights in the dash, and if you press 3, you basically see it start to actuate, and the little controller is in behind here, and that wire there goes to the controller. So when it gets to a certain point in the dash with the lights will actually stop flashing when it gets to the when it gets to the full up position in this case. And there you go, and that's the best thing since slice spread. So number 1 is 15 degrees, and then I've got 25 degrees in the second setting, and 35 degrees in the third setting, which is absolutely great. It was perfect for this aeroplane. Originally the flap setup I had was 15 degrees and 35 degrees, so you know, it's nice to just have something in between, especially if you're coming in with a bit of a crosswind. Come in on second stage of flaps and it's perfect. Okay, back on the brakes. Just want to show the setup that I've put underneath the cowling here, or underneath the bonnet I should say. Right, so we've put our little reservoirs up the top here. So these are basically just 2 little motorcycle reservoirs, but they're really easy to see, and you know, it works great. So here you'll see the master cylinders that I've put in, Matco master cylinders. Just bought those online, and yeah, and then I've put some bigger sort of bits and pieces on the pedals, a little bit of aluminium checker plate on the pedals. Basically pulled the pedals out, took off the old master cylinders, which were terrible, like beyond terrible, and then put in these Matco ones, and they work absolutely beautiful. They, you know, like with the new master cylinders and slave cylinders, you know, the whole thing just works great, and it pulls up really well, steers great, the whole bit. Right, moving right along, we'll have a bit of a look at the interior. Now, the interior when I first got this plane was as basic as it could get. There was no door cards and no carpet. The upholstery, there was really next to no seating in it. There was these fairly thin things that, yeah, they're kind of like cushions, you might say. They were pretty ordinary and pretty uncomfortable to sit in, to be honest. So, and I've put carpet all through it, some mats obviously to try to pimp it up a little bit inside, and the seats, well, I've sat in these seats, as you all know, looking at previous videos, I've sat in these seats a long time, and when I hop out I still feel pretty good. So yeah, I'm really happy with it. They're nothing special and nothing outlandish, but they actually work really, really well. Now the dash has definitely seen some changes over the time that I've had it. In the few years I've had this aeroplane, I've put more gauges in it, and basically put we go through a volt gauge that wasn't in here. This outlet in the dash here, that was not there. I've put these extra lights in. So this is oil pressure light, and this is a fuel pump light. So when we turn the fuel pump on, green light comes on, and I don't always run the fuel pump. You know, once we're cruising, I turn the fuel pump off, keeping an eye on the fuel pressure gauge. And that's something else that we've put in. Basically on the left hand side is the fuel pressure gauge, and on the right hand side is a fuel level gauge. So I've put a fuel level gauge, fuel level sensor in the tank as well, obviously. And yeah, that took a little bit of doing. But so to see the fuel level in this aircraft, you basically have to try and turn around and look, and I was a bit over that. Especially I've got something sitting between the two seats here. It's quite hard to see sometimes, especially when it gets down a bit. So below, say 35 litres, it's quite difficult to see. So that prompted me to put a fuel level gauge in it, and you see the sender, the top of the sender, just here. Yeah, furthermore to the dash, yeah, I've put the volt gauge here. I did have a little one over here, but yeah, it was a little hard to see, and I kind of wanted something that looked pretty much the same as all the others. So I managed to squeeze this one in here. And what else have we done? And of course the electric flaps, which are quite easy to see. I've also put a strobe light and a landing light in the front of the plane as well. So this is our little strobe light that we've put underneath. Once again, I bought that online, and it's been, yeah, I think it's a great thing. You know, nothing like visibility. Now this is our landing light on the front here. That's an LED light. I have actually been unfortunate enough to come in just as the sun was going down and could actually see the airstrip. Believe it or not, it did make a difference, and once again helps with visibility. Now something else I've been asked about is what's the little square thing that's up on the left hand side or in the dash. I'm presuming that we're talking about the Garmin. Now this little Garmin here, look, it's the most basic model. It's 660 or something like that, I think it is. But I've hardwired it. There's a mount that it sits into, a cradle that it sits into, and I've hardwired that into the intercom here. And that's why in the audio of a couple of the videos I've done, you know, you'll hear low terrain, pull up and things like that, and 500 feet and whatever. It's the greatest thing. I love it. It's seriously my probably one of the favourite things that I've actually done to this aeroplane. And of course I run a tablet with Oz Runways on it, and that's, you know, also been a big help. You know, we all know what it's like to get maps out on our lap and all that sort of stuff, and you know, we'll still carry the maps, there's no doubt about that, because you know, who knows, one day a satellite might go down and we'll be in some trouble then. But you know, I find Oz Runway, especially on a tablet this size, to be you know, very helpful. And also with the app too, there's all sorts of different things like weather and what have you as well, and rain charts and what have you. I do actually have that in the Garmin, but I sort of don't often use that. I use the Garmin really for navigation and the 3D attitude as well, which is great. And of course the gauges, you can change, you know, I've changed the configuration sometimes, and from different types of where are we, zoom in, you want tapes, we'll go to tapes. And yeah, if you change it to tapes, it's just got these on the side here, which I find great as well. But I normally run sort of with the normal configuration, the round gauges configuration. So there we go. I'm also running a little Telstra router as well, which sort of helps. The previous tablet I had a SIM card in it, but this one doesn't have a SIM card. So yeah, I bought one of these little Telstra router things, and you know, I think that works pretty good too. Something I didn't mention before, this plane, before I bought it, the previous guy that owned it, he was a very good mechanic and looked after the aeroplane very, very well. It's been very well built from what I can gather, and I pretty much know every nut and bolt in this plane by now. And yeah, so they put electronic ignition on one side, and I'll just show you that. So this is the coil for the electronic ignition here, and then part of the module is here. It's fairly easy setup, so you can probably just see in here, this is part of the electronic ignition as well. So you get this backing plate, the pickup, and yeah, and then I think it just runs off these magnets, and yeah, and then that sends a signal to the module that's down here, which basically fires your coils up and gives you ignition, and I think it's great. Part of the gauges set up that I've got in the cockpit is the fuel gauge, or fuel pressure gauge, and this is the sensor here that I've plumbed into the top of the fuel pump. So yeah, I originally had a manual gauge. Manual gauges can have their problems, especially if you have a fuel leak in the cabin. It can be you know, pretty embarrassing, to say the least. Even with a braided line, I was always skeptical about it, and yeah, then went to the electric gauge and sensor. I actually find it's way more accurate as well. So there's a couple of R clips that go in these tabs here. Now there is a downside to owning a tail dragger, and that is one, checking the oil. So checking the oil on this aeroplane, there's this little flap at the top here. So you can imagine if it's a tail dragger, all the oil is now sitting at the back of the engine. So to check the oil, I've actually got to lift the tail up, which is not that heavy, it's pretty good. But yeah, lift the tail up and then sort of check the oil, you know, wipe the stick, or pull the stick out, wipe it, put it back in, lift the tail up, put it back down, and then you run around here and you check the oil and so forth. When I park it up in the hangar, I actually put the tail on a couple of milk crates, and then the plane is actually perfectly level, and yeah, that allows not only the oil to be easily checked, but you know, and get an accurate gauge on how much oil's in it, but it also enables any water that's in the fuel to make it into the low point of the tank. Now the low point of the tank is at the front of the tank, which is a pain in the neck, you know. Seriously, with a tail dragger, I probably should have turned the tank around maybe, but then the filler would be on the other side. But in any case, you know, I set it on a couple of milk crates and it just works perfect. Okay, well that pretty much brings us to an end. I've yeah, run over most of the plane. The plane, since I've had it, I've done roughly 150 hours in it, I suppose, which is not a lot, but 150 hours with this aeroplane being a tail dragger, you know, you get a pretty good handle on the way that it does handle on landing, especially. You know, taking off is easy. I just basically take off with full throttle and full stick forward. It doesn't take that long. The tail comes up, ease off on the stick. As soon as it reaches airspeed, so 60 knots, 65 knots, it's off the ground. And that's with one passenger in it. Sorry, with just me in it, with the pilot in it. With a passenger, 65, 70 knots, it's off the ground, and pulls like a train. So it's, you know, nothing to pull out at 1,000 feet a minute. you know, at around 80 knots. So yeah, it pulls really well. Apart from that, you know, we've put a few, like I said earlier, put a few stickers and things around the plane just to pimp it up a little bit, make it look nice. And yeah, I'm pretty happy with the way it is, and I'm guessing I probably won't do much more to it, to be honest. I'll put a little temperature gauge up here, up the top here, and that's good to sight every now and again. Coming across the middle of Australia, it was particularly good, you know, to get a good idea on air temperature. Okay, well that brings us to a close on this little aeroplane. It's a Jabiru SPT500. So there's a few SP500s kicking around, but not SPTs. So the SPT obviously tailwheel. And yeah, I think, well, I know of 3, and the 3 are all here in Queensland. And yeah, we've all had our battles with them, but love them all the same. I do know one guy that owned an SPT500 and sold it and had Jabiru in Queensland change it back to a tailwheel before he actually handed it over, because he thought the guy that was going to buy it would well, possibly have an accident. Let's put it that way. And you know, I think it was probably a good decision. Once you, like I said earlier, once you've got a handle on the plane, great little aeroplane to fly, and they are pretty good to land, particularly good to take off in. And yeah, but there's no doubting the fact that these in a tailwheel configuration are a bit scary from time to time. Anyway, thank you, hope you enjoy the video, and I'll see you next time. Alright, God bless, take care.